He got off on my floor, followed me, and then called my room. This happened when I was 16 during a family vacation in Turkey. We were staying at a fancy all-inclusive resort, 5-star place, big hotel complex, nice overall. Everything was great until one evening after dinner. We were going to head out again later that night, and I realized I had left my jacket in the room, so I went back alone to grab it. I took the elevator, and right before the doors closed, a man stepped in with me. I pressed the button for the 3rd floor. He didn't press anything. When the elevator stopped, I got off, and so did he. I started walking down the long hallway toward our room. It was a big winding hotel layout with lots of branching corridors. But as I walked, I could feel him behind me, getting closer and closer. My gut suddenly screamed, "If you don't run now, you're going to die." I've never felt dread like that in my life. So I sprinted the last stretch to our room, slammed the door shut, and just stood there trying to catch my breath. I was shaken, but I figured that was it. Creepy guy. Overactive imagination. Nothing actually happened, right? Wrong. I stayed in the room for a bit, trying to calm down. Then, just as I was thinking about heading back out, the hotel phone rang. I picked it up. It was a man's voice. He told me I was beautiful, started asking my name. I was in shock. He started telling me about the disgusting things he wanted to do to me. It was disgusting. I hung up immediately. My heart was racing. I was crying and trembling. And then the phone rang again and again, non-stop. That's when it hit me. He saw which room I went into. Despite me sprinting, he'd still managed to track exactly where I was staying. And that was all he needed to call the room. I didn't want to leave the room because I was too scared. I couldn't stop imagining him waiting just outside, or finding another way in. I felt completely trapped. Eventually, after I didn't show up, my parents became worried and came back to the room. My dad walked in just as the phone rang again. This time, he picked it up. The moment my dad said hello, the line went dead. The guy didn't call again. I never saw him again. The hotel was big enough that maybe he was staying in a different wing. We'll never know. My parents kind of brushed it off. They told me not to make drama, that creepy stuff happens sometimes. And it's over now. So let's move on. To this day, 12 years later, dim, quiet hotel hallways make me feel incredibly uneasy, and I hate walking to hotel rooms on my own. For a long time, I convinced myself I was overreacting. Now I know I wasn't. I was 15 and had just transferred into a new school. I made a friend immediately, and after a few weeks, I asked my mom, and she agreed to let me spend the night. I'm not going to give out my friend's real name, so let's just call her Kelsey. Anyway, I get to Kelsey's place, and it's all fun and games. I met her mom, who I absolutely adore, and even managed to make a few jokes with both her parents, even though her dad seemed more partial to grunting. Around 10, we both got sleepy, and since I have horrible memory, I didn't remember to bring something to sleep with, so I borrowed a shirt from Kelsey that went down to my knees. We also slept together in the same bed. I know, probably not a good idea to be wearing just a shirt, with understuff, of course, to a sleepover, but I trusted my friend, and she was wearing something similar. We both passed out, but I woke up some time later because I could feel the blanket moving. I turned my head and saw a shadowy figure. I could just barely make out that it was her dad, stepping back from the bed and dropping the blanket. I blinked in his direction like twice and then instantly fell asleep again. Dumb, I know, but I was dead tired and too sleepy to be properly alarmed. I felt the same thing after I fell asleep again, and this time, I didn't move around too much, as I looked and verified that yes, that was my friend's father, and that he was lifting the blanket on the side I was sleeping on. My thighs were exposed because the shirt had ridden up when I slept, and I sat up, scaring him away from the blanket again. Yeah, it took it happening twice, but I finally caught on to what was going on, and to say I was scared was an understatement. I had a lot of shit going through my mind, about all the horrible ways that could have ended. I made sure the blanket was around my legs, and I still acted sleepy because I didn't want him to know how aware I was. He moved away from the foot of the bed and stood by the TV, telling me some BS story that he was just there to turn it down, or whatever. I just went with it. He stood there for like 3 minutes, just looking back to see if I would lay down again, if I was even thinking about it. The fact that he was waiting on it would have stopped me. Thankfully, he left the room, and I grabbed my phone and tried my hardest to call my parents. They didn't answer because it was like 3 a.m. As I was trying to reach them, though, I noticed something. He never really left the hallway/bathroom space in front of Kelsey's door. He was still waiting for me to fall back asleep, and because of that, he kept poking his head into the room every few minutes. At that point, I felt sick. I was the most terrified I'd ever been in my life, because I suddenly realized that we were the only two awake in the house. I went on Shamchat just to contact people and not feel so isolated. I could have woke Kelsey, but I didn't. I was too scared, and I didn't want to lose my first friend, so I didn't bother waking her up. I just stayed on my phone all night until she woke up, and I made her come with me to the bathroom because I was so nervous. If you're curious, I did eventually tell her what happened. She begged me to tell her mom, and I did even though I didn't want to. She then came home with me and refused to leave until I told my mom. Together, they managed to get him out of the house, and Kelsey is still one of my closest friends to this day, and I'm immensely grateful for the fact that I'm a light sleeper. The only thing that woke me up those 2 times was feeling the blanket being lifted. It was such a small thing, but I'm so fucking lucky that it woke me up. He could have done a lot worse than look if it wasn't for that. I didn't think it would matter. I didn't think he was actually watching anymore. And that was my mistake. I had a stalker for almost 4 years. At first, I didn't even call it that, because he never broke in, never touched me, never sent threats, just present, always just close enough to remind me he existed. At first it was letters, then things started appearing, photos of my apartment building taken from outside, objects I had thrown away, suddenly back in my life, things from my trash, things I never should have seen again. I called the police multiple times, but nothing ever came of it. No identity, no suspect, just, we'll look into it. And life kept going, or at least, I told myself it did. Then one day, I posted about it on Reddit. No names, no locations, nothing obvious, just the story, someone commented. "Does he know you're posting this?" And I replied, "Maybe he'll be angry, maybe he'll like it. I don't know, I don't care." That sentence changed everything. The following week was silent. No letters, no gifts, no signs of him, for the first time in years. It felt like it was over, but it wasn't. It was just waiting. Then the letters started again, but this time, they were different. They referenced my Reddit post, my exact words, printed out, highlighted, like he had been reading everything, like he had been there the entire time. Then came something worse. A letter addressed to my boyfriend. It wasn't just angry, it was personal, obsessive. He wrote about how I was wasting attention that belonged to him, like I was something he owned. That's when it hit me. He wasn't just watching me anymore. He was reacting. A few days later, I found a package, not in my mailbox, not outside, but inside the building, right in front of my door. The box was heavy, poorly taped, too deliberate, too patient. I should have left it, but I didn't. I opened it outside. Inside were objects that didn't make sense at first. Zip ties, tape, a broken TV remote. From outside, my boyfriend was in the picture, but cut out. The frame was shattered, and inside the box, glass shards were mixed into the packaging, not accidental placed. That was the moment everything changed. It wasn't just annoying anymore, it was personal. I called the police immediately. This time, they took it seriously. They documented everything, collected everything, filed reports, and for a while, it stopped again, about a week and a half, just long enough to make me think it was over. But it wasn't. Then the letters returned, but now they weren't messages. They were evaluations. He wrote about how I wasn't appreciating his effort, how I was wasting his time. Like this wasn't stalking, like it was a relationship. Then came the glass. One morning, I stepped outside and heard it, a crunch under my foot, glass, under my doormat, placed there overnight. I went to work anyway. That's when I saw my car, scratched down both sides, headlights smashed, windshield painted, a message across it. "It's time soon, Miss Last Name." I went back inside and called the police again. This time, I wasn't calm anymore. And finally, They treated it like something real. I had a dash cam. It caught everything. The timing, the damage, movement near the car. For the first time, it wasn't dismissed. They said they'd increase patrols. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then at 4 a.m., the doorbell rang. A voice outside said, "This is the police. Open the door." Blue lights filled the hallway. My boyfriend and I froze. Neither of us had called them. A neighbor had seen someone enter the building. He waited, watched, then called when he saw movement on the stairs. Motion lights turned on. Step by step, someone was going upstairs, only 3 apartments above. Mine, my boyfriend's, and a family's police moved in carefully and found him, half a floor above, standing on the stairs. Waiting, he didn't run, didn't hide, just looked at them, and confessed. He had a knife on him. After 4 years, he was finally caught. All the letters, all the photos, all the moments I thought were random, finally had a name. And then came something I didn't expect. Silence. Not relief, not happiness, just emptiness. Like something had been living alongside me for so long that I didn't know how to exist without it. That night, for the first time in years, I took out the trash alone. In the dark, no one stopped me, no one followed me. But I stood there longer than I should have. Just listening, waiting for something that didn't come. Because even now, part of me still expects footsteps, even when there aren't any.